Eddie Malone had been driving 18-wheelers for nearly 20 years, and there wasn't much that could rattle him anymore. He had seen overturned rigs on icy interstates, hauled loads through deserts where the heat cooked engines, and watched men break down from exhaustion in the driver's lounge at truck stops. But that night on Route 19, with the rain falling in relentless sheets, something felt wrong the moment his headlights cut through the darkness. It was after midnight, the kind of hour when the road seemed endless and the cab of the truck became its own little world. The CB radio was quiet. The only sound was the heavy thump of wipers smearing rain across the windshield and the hum of the diesel engine beneath him. Eddie kept his thermos of coffee close, but even the caffeine wasn't fighting off the weight of the storm. He slowed the rig down to 45, squinting into the white blur of water and light. That's when he saw her. She appeared at the edge of the road in a pale dress, drenched from the storm, her long dark hair plastered across her face. For half a second Eddie thought it was just his tired eyes playing tricks, a reflection in the rain, a trick of the high beams. But she lifted her arm and waved. A frantic, desperate wave. "Jesus!" Eddie muttered, jamming the brakes and pulling over to the shoulder. His trailer hissed as the air brakes locked. He leaned forward, watching as the figure stumbled toward the road. The door groaned as he pushed it open, rain rushing in with the cold. "Ma'am?" he shouted over the storm. "You okay?" The woman didn't answer, just kept walking until she was right below the cab, staring up at him. Her face was pale in the headlights, eyes wide, lips trembling. "They left me," she said. Her voice was barely audible over the rain, but Eddie felt it cut through him. "Climb up," he said, motioning. "I'll get you out of this storm." She hesitated, then grabbed the handle and pulled herself up into the passenger seat. She smelled of wet earth, like she'd been lying in mud. Her dress clung to her like second skin. Eddie shut the door and started rolling again. "You out here alone? Where's your car?" The woman stared straight ahead, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "It doesn't matter. Just drive." He frowned, but he wasn't the type to pry. Plenty of people found themselves in trouble on lonely highways. Bad boyfriends, broken down cars, running away from something. He figured he'd drop her at the next town, maybe a 24-hour diner or a police station if she needed. They drove in silence for miles. The storm lightened, but the air inside the cab grew heavier by the minute. Eddie found himself glancing at her. She hadn't moved, hadn't blinked much either. Just sat there, soaked, staring ahead like the road wasn't even there. Finally, he cleared his throat. "What's your name?" Slowly, she turned her head. Her lips parted. "Do you believe in ghosts, Eddie?" Eddie's chest tightened. He hadn't told her his name. "How the hell?" he started, but she smiled, and for the first time he saw her teeth, blackened, broken. Eddie's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. He pulled the rig onto the shoulder again, chest pounding like he'd just sprinted a mile. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, but inside the cab, sweat dripped down his back. He leaned over, flicking on the cab light. The seat was dry. No water stains, no mud. Nothing to suggest anyone had ever been there. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "I need sleep." He rubbed his face with both hands, telling himself it was exhaustion. 20 years on the road taught him that fatigue could play nasty tricks. Shadowy figures crossing the road, phantom headlights in the mirror, whispers in the static of the CB. He reached for his thermos, only to stop dead. The lid was unscrewed. Coffee dripped down the side. He hadn't opened it since before the woman appeared. Eddie snapped the lid shut, shoved the thermos aside, and jammed the truck back into gear. He didn't care what tricks his mind was playing. He was getting to the next truck stop, parking the rig, and sleeping until daylight. The rain cleared, the moon breaking through shredded clouds. The highway stretched on like a black ribbon. He pushed the speed up to 60, eyes locked on the road. Then he saw it. Up ahead, in the glow of the high beams, stood the woman. The same white dress, the same dripping hair plastered to her face. She raised her hand again, waving, exactly as before. Eddie slammed the brakes, his stomach lurching. Tires screeched. "No!" he said aloud, shaking his head. No, no, no. The rig slowed, stopping yards from where she stood. But this time she didn't move. She just stared, and even through the windshield, Eddie swore he could feel her eyes drilling into him. He grabbed the CB mic, his voice tight. Breaker 19, anybody out there? This is Blacktop, Eddie. I got a situation here on Route 19. You copy. Static. A long hiss, then faint voices. Don't stop for her. Eddie froze. The voice was male, hollow, broken by static. Don't let her in. The line went dead. Eddie dropped the mic. His breathing came sharp and ragged. He slammed the truck into gear, pressing the accelerator hard. The woman didn't move, and for a split second, he thought he would plow right through her. But the headlights passed over empty road. Nothing there. Eddie's chest heaved as he drove faster, 65, 70. His eyes darted to the mirrors, half expecting to see her clinging to the trailer. But the mirrors showed nothing. Only the long stretch of wet asphalt glowing behind him 10 minutes later. The glow of a truck stop sign rose out of the dark like salvation. He pulled in, parking between two long-haul rigs. The lot was quiet, dotted with a few sleeper cabs. He killed the engine and sat there, listening to the tick of cooling metal. You're tired, he muttered. That's all. But as he reached for his logbook, something made his blood run cold. In the passenger seat, the same dry, empty seat, sat a single wet footprint. Eddie didn't sleep that night. He sat in the diner booth with a cup of coffee growing cold in front of him, staring out at the row of trucks. A few other drivers shuffled in, boots squeaking on tile, ball caps pulled low. He thought about telling one of them what he'd seen, but the words felt insane even in his own head. Around 3 a.m., a man slid into the booth across from him. Older, face weathered, beard streaked with gray. His jacket bore the patches of 20 trucking companies long gone. He looked Eddie over with eyes that had seen too many miles. You saw her, the man said flatly. Eddie stiffened. Saw who? Don't bother lying. Route 19. Woman in white dress. Waving you down like the world's ending. Eddie's mouth went dry. How the hell do you know that? The old man leaned in, lowering his voice. Because every driver who runs that stretch long enough sees her. Some once, some over and over. And not all of them come back to talk about it. Eddie's stomach churned. What is she? The man's eyes flicked toward the rain-streaked window. Depends who you ask. Some say she's the ghost of a hitchhiker killed on the road back in the 70s. Others swear she's something older, something that wears a woman's skin because it knows we'll stop. All I know is, if you let her ride too long, she don't get out. Eddie's hands trembled around his coffee mug. I didn't. She just vanished. The man nodded slowly. Then you got lucky. Next time, don't stop. Don't talk. Just keep driving. They sat in silence, the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Eddie wanted to argue, to demand proof, but deep down he knew the man was telling the truth. That wet footprint hadn't been a dream. By dawn, Eddie was back on the road, the sun bleeding over the horizon. The storm was gone, the highway dry. He drove with both windows cracked, the radio blasting, anything to drown out the silence. But as the miles rolled under his wheels, he couldn't shake the feeling that she was still out there, waiting. That night, when he pulled into another rest stop, he opened the cab door and froze. The passenger seat was wet. A long strand of black hair lay across the cushion. Eddie slammed the door shut and walked away, leaving the rig idling under the buzzing lights. He never drove Route 19 again.